Mary, welcome to the World XP podcast. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So, for the people listening, do you want to do like a elevator pitch, kind of who you are and what you do, and then we'll hop into the question from the last guest, and then we'll jump right into it. I'm kind of excited to see where this leads us because I know all some things and then also nothing, and so I don't know where this will go, but it'll be fun, I think. So, let's start with the intro, and then we'll hop into the rest of it.
Sure. So my name is Mary D'Angelo. I'm a solutions lead for Filigran. So we're a company that specializes in building a threat intelligence program for our clients. Prior to that, I've been in the cybersecurity space for almost about 10 years now. Initially started with an organization called Darktrace, which focused on network detection and response. So less on the cyber threat intelligence piece. When I talk about cyber threat intelligence, I'm always going to use the term CTI. So just your understanding, when I throw lingo like that, you'll get what I mean. And then from working, I was with that company for about 5 years. It's how I got into cyber. So I don't have a background in cyber at all. In fact, my degree is in marketing. And so that kind of set me my footstep into the cyber world, which I found fascinating. And from there, I got recruited to work with a company called Searchlight Cyber that specialized only in dark web threat intelligence. And then in that space, that's when I got pushed more onto the technical side. So I was working more with our technical team, our analysts, for those who were working mostly trying to understand and track criminal threat actors, matching, understanding what their specific like use cases are, their attacks, their techniques, their procedures, and then able to speak to our clients there so that if you're a hospital, you could understand, okay, these five actors are more likely going to target you. And this is typically how they target. These are their tactics, their procedures. So this is how you want to protect yourself, right? So the whole point of CTI is making sure to reduce uncertainty, right? And being more proactive as opposed to reactive when it comes to cybersecurity. And after being with that company for 2 years, that was my first step in introduction into CTI, which is a completely whole new beast within cyber. It's fascinating because it is on the newer side, right? So it's only been mostly around like about 5 to 7 years, and it's evolved so much within that. And now I work for a company called Filigran, and we are the leaders in building a threat intelligence program. So platform. So basically what we're doing is gathering all of your different intelligence feeds and then being able to combine it into one platform so that you're able to, assess it, analyze it, even, disseminate it to share it amongst other key stakeholders and basically to make it actionable, right? Because intelligence is so important, but if you can't action upon intel, it doesn't provide a ton of value.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Okay. With that, I've got plenty more questions. So I think we'll be good. I won't run out of questions. The question from the last guest is if you had any advice for people kind of graduating college, or maybe like early, like college age, finding a first job. You mentioned that your degree is in marketing, but you ended up in
Mhm.
cybersecurity. Like, what sort of either advice or maybe some challenges that you had earlier in your career that you were able to overcome?
That's a really good question. That's an incredibly good question because I did not come from a cyber background. So I think if what helped me, and I think uh, what helped me to succeed really and to get further, um, more advanced, was I just leveraged the CTI, the cyber network. So I got involved with a ton of different conferences, like different breakfasts, and I tried to meet as many people as possible just to sort of like pick their brains, understand what type of roles they had, and then I would then kind of, follow up with them, ask for their support, their recommendations, what I should do. because at the time I had no idea, right? I didn't really know much about cybersecurity. I didn't know which, facet of cybersecurity I wanted to be in. But after speaking with all these different folks, you kind of build an understanding of, okay, this path will fit me. And if this is the path that will fit me best, what do I need to do in order to go down this path? It's funny because I just got reached out to, I like to help a lot of students that are coming from cyber and they're so lost, they don't know where to go. And I just had coffee with someone the other day and was telling me how she thinks CTI is so fascinating, but she has no idea how to get into it. And so it's like, okay, I know how to hook her up with some people that I know that might be a little bit more technical than I am, and I would set her up with those, and then it kind of moves from there. So I think your best bet is to reach out on LinkedIn, go to events, and indirectly, if there's someone on LinkedIn who's posting a lot, definitely reach out to them directly. Send them a note saying like, "Oh, I read your article. I found it fascinating. Would you have a few minutes? This is where I am in my career. Would like to see if you could maybe provide some support."
Yeah, that's a good answer. So how did you end up like when you were in school, where was marketing just like a thing that you thought that you could do a lot with, or like how did that progression happen from marketing to cyber? Because there's so many people go to marketing so they can work for sports teams or they work for
Yeah.
advertising companies or all these things. Like how did you end up like was marketing just like a kind of a catch-all, like I don't know what I want to do yet, but I can do a lot with this, or like, what was the thought process like, or was there any? I don't know. I didn't really think that much when I was 18, so I don't know.
I know. I'm so shocked today when I see students going into college and they have a strong understanding of like what they want to do, where they want to go. And I think th unfortunately I went to a high school that didn't have like any AP classes, right? So a strong uh there wasn't a strong academic emphasis there. So when I went to University of Washington in Seattle. I was so lost. And I think the best I had like a career counseling, and he was asking me things that I like and what I didn't like. And I liked the metrics behind marketing, right? I liked more so of the market research side as opposed to the advertising side. And so she recommended to go into marketing. And then just from there, honestly, I was so lucky. I was so lucky. I received right when I graduated, I was trying to get some Washington State, trying to move to the East Coast, and someone had a position open for me in Washington, D.C. That was to do dark trace. So that was my first step into cybersecurity. And it was I was just extremely lucky because if I did not take that position, or if I was taken somewhere else, I would be in a completely different world. And I can't imagine not being in cyber today.
Hmm. So were you unsure when you got the that offer, or was a part of you like already interested, or did you have to like get used to it and then you're like, okay, I actually kind of like this. Maybe I keep going, or like or was there one moment where you're like, okay, I'm gonna stick with this, or from the beginning where you like this sounds interesting to me.
Yeah, I just kind of went with and I was just so excited to get a job on the East Coast. That was like my goal. I wanted to move out of Washington State. Um, and I didn't realize how important cybersecurity was, right? Like, also this was back just like a little over 10 years ago. So it's not like what it is today. I think if I were to go back to school today with my marketing degree, I would not have been given this opportunity. So I'm super grateful for that. But yeah, I kind of went to it with just like no, I guess, no idea of what I was getting myself into. And it wasn't until I started going to the conferences and meeting with people, I'm like, wow, this is awesome because not only can I be able to, I'm an extrovert, right? So I like to connect with people, I like to talk to people. But not only was I able to do that, but I could also attend more of these technical sessions and kind of understand the various use cases in cyber because there are so many different use cases and there's, cyber is so expansive. So there's no, there's always an opportunity to learn. And I felt like I would never get stagnant in that role.
Yeah. So when did CTI come along? You mentioned this maybe like 5 to 7 years old. So that sort of what should we say, subset of cybersecurity like pops up as you've already begun your career. So how did
Mhm.
that transition for you personally go, but also for the field? Like where did this I guess the need for this arise? Because I think I'll say like regular people um think cybersecurity, yeah, somebody wants to scam me or they want to hack somebody's data or like whatever. And so you kind of run around like, okay, it's all the same. Like, yeah, these people still want to get my data. But for people in the cyber world, it's like, no, there's a new kind of subset of our new field that is necessary. What sorts of things like preempted that from the field
Mhm.
perspective, and then for you personally, your transition into that piece of cyber?
Yeah, so cyber CTI has been around for it has been around for a very long time. But back in the day, it was made mostly for, I would say, like elite organizations. So it would be like a few group of people working at a company building very technical reports of like what they're seeing within the CTI landscape and then passing those reports to various stakeholders within the organization. And there was like a lot of frustration around that. Like people just thought it was a waste of time because you couldn't really pull real value from these reports. And so it got to a point where it was only recently, about 5 years ago, did values come from it, and that mostly came from incident response teams when they saw that if done properly, if the cyber if the reports came in properly, then they would able to use this to contextualize some of the threats that they were triaging. They could use it to maybe be more proactive when it comes to instead of just like waiting for an attack to happen to you and then responding, like, okay, you can now better prepare yourself based off the intel that's out there. It's CT has evolved so much, and I think there's an interesting, um, there's also interesting debates within the field because not all CTI analysts come from, you have to have an analytical mind and a technical mind, right? So you have to be able to piece things together. And I think right now we see a lot of like SOC analysts or incident response analysts who are moving into CTI, but that's not a very, um, it's not super translatable because it's a completely different skill set. And so I think, yeah, so I think it's gotten to a point where I think every organization realizes how crucial CTI is and how important it is and how it needs to permeate through every aspect of an organization. So not just with incident response, but also from like the executive level, having, the executive team having a strong understanding of the threat intel landscape today. So then how they can build more of a strategic goal, strategic plan for their cybersecurity team, and then from an operational side, how teams can leverage threat intel on a daily basis, right? And then also from a tactical perspective. So if you're dealing with like threats that are here and now, and then trying to understand those techniques, tactics, procedures from these threat actors, how to leverage this threat intel to respond to them.
So for somebody like me who's not in this world, when you see something like Social Security Administration have a big data breach, was that like last year or the year before or
Mhm.
something like that, and you're sitting there like, well, this is the like part of the biggest organization on the face of the earth, like the U.S. government, but the like they're the data still gets breached, and so like that has a direct effect on whichever people got their socials breached or sold onto the dark web. Like, so what sorts of, I guess, is there a side of CTI that regular, I hate using the term regular people, but I'll use it anyways. So like people who are not in that world can take to protect themselves from such things? Because in an example like that, it feels rather like helpless a little bit.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, it's funny because like pretty much everything's already out there. Like I get from my family a lot. They're always asking me like, "Hey, can you go on the dark web and see if my information has been leaked?" And I'm like, "Sure, but most likely it has."
Hmm.
So at that point, like I remember doing all of my siblings and my family members, their email addresses, searching them on the dark web and like, okay, your all of your email addresses are on here, your phone numbers are on here, your passwords are on here. Like what you need to do is just make sure you're updating your passwords, making sure it's at the right length, right? Making sure you have MFA put in place as well.
What
I
is
think
what is that? MFA?
multi-factorial
Oh,
authentication,
yes, 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 yes,
2FA.
yes. Yeah.
Um, my sister in particular looked up her email address and it had her her password that she used for her bank account. And I texted her, I was like, "Is this your password?" It's like on the dark web. And she started freaking out. I was like, "Josie, you need to change your password. You can't use this password. And you also need to set up 2FA or MFA."
Yeah.
So there's things like that where it's like it, so much information is out there, so it's really hard to protect yourself. But it's more so just making sure now that you have the MFA set up. Um, you change your passwords. Make sure you're reusing the same passwords. Having one of those, I use just the Apple version on my phone where you can keep all of your save your passwords encrypted. I think there's a few other solutions out there, companies that you can use. VPNs are good as well if you want to. I don't use a VPN. I only have one through work, but I've heard that, those are really good in terms of like kind of masking, your IP address. So, and then also just being educated. I think most attacks now they say the weakest link is humans. Social engineering attacks is the number one attack today that's on the rise. I don't know if you've received, I think recently they've come out with a lot of those Easy Pass tolls, text
Yeah, all,
messages.
all, all the time.
Yeah. But those for us, like you look at it, you could tell because I think when I receive it, it's from a phone number that's not even in the US, right? So it's like
Well,
clearly.
I saw one that was like some name at hacker.com, and I was like, ugh.
But I think we laugh at that, but there are so many people that fall for that because what they're trying to do, it's very psychological, is when you get something like that, it causes your stomach to drop, and then you make irrational decisions, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, I have all these tolls, outstanding tolls, and you freak out, and then you click on it, and that's exactly what they want. Um, but if you I think so. A big part in my role is staying up to date on, what's happening in the threat intel in the cyberspace. I don't think your average person needs to do that much, keep like I'm following Google alerts or watching Hacker News. Um, but maybe just being more, and I think there are resources out there to being a little bit more savvy especially when it comes to social engineering attacks, because those can get really, really brutal. And I've had family members who've been victims of them. I've been victim of one as well. And that's the other thing too, is kind of shifting the culture around it because most people are so embarrassed about, oh, they fell for something like this. And that needs to change because like everyone will fall for it. And the more you're able to talk about it with each other, the more people will have, a better understanding of, okay, this is why I fell for it. How can I be better? And how can I train other people to be better about seeing these types of attacks?
Yeah, because it used to be like your package was delivered to the wrong location or whatever. Click this link
Yeah.
to sign for it or something like that. Um, and then the other thing, at least with the Easy Pass with the toll ones, is if you just read it and then check the date that they said half the time, probably more than half the time, you weren't even in that location on that day. So like for people that get them and feel scared,
Hmm.
just like read it. Um, and then also just delete it and report junk anyways. But um, yeah, that's funny that you mentioned that about you got once. I got when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17 or whatever, and it gave me a fake Apple support number and then like nothing happened, but like I didn't know any better. And so
Hmm.
um since I'm glad I learned that lesson then when I had like no money and I was 16 and like nothing mattered. And so now
Yeah.
every time I get one that's like this maybe could be like I was expecting a email or text from somebody that I didn't know about, whether it's a podcast or like whatever the thing that I'm doing. And I'm not sure. I have like friends that kind of work in the world. I'm like, hey, is this is this bad? And I'm very shameless about it. And then half the time they just send back laughing emojis and tell me to delete it. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it happens. It happens to everybody. The other
That's a
thing
good
that
point. That's a good point though,
yeah.
right? So that's what we want to encourage is if you see something and you're unsure, share it with your friends or people in those space so that you can get instead of if you are unaware, like instead of you having to like figure it out yourself, make sure you go seek out expert help on it. And there shouldn't be any shame around that because everyone has been a victim of it. Like even of the romance scandals too. People are very ashamed of that, but that happens all the time.
Yeah. I think that's a broader point in society, the romance ones, why they work so well. It's like, well, we don't have to get into that, but like there's a
Mhm.
whole societal thing why that probably is working better than maybe it should. You also mentioned like people's info on the dark web, and I think that I know the answer to this, but I want to bring up the point and then ask for your input on it. It's like just because it's on there doesn't mean that anybody is using it. Um, and so, like, it just means that you got to be more careful about, like you said, changing your passwords and stuff. Because oftentimes, like, I feel like, for example, like my parents were like, "Oh, I got an alert that my whatever was on the dark web." It's like, okay, but does your bank account look fine? Yeah. Did you get any weird charges? No. Have you gotten any like weird requests for like to change the password to this thing in your email? Like, no. It's like, okay, well, you're good. Just change your password then, and then make sure you stay on top of it. Is that accurate? Like, people don't need to have that
Mhm.
level of like freak out about it.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of fear mongering. I've noticed when companies will send out like, oh, your email address has been found 5 times on the dark web, or your phone number has been out for like 5 times on the dark web. And then immediately people freak out about that. Like, what are you going to do about it? And there's no way it's extremely difficult to get that pulled off from the dark web. So there's at that point, there's nothing you can do about it. There are certain cases with like we've worked with companies in the past. It's called like takedowns. So they would go undercover and negotiate with the threat actor on the other side if they're selling those credentials to take it all down. But that's also never a guarantee either. So it's all you can do is like, okay, great. Just assume everything you have, all your email address, phone numbers is out there. And the best thing you can do moving forward is, yeah, change your password, include MFA, make sure you have that in place. I think that's probably the number one thing you want to do. Um, yeah, and just be more, careful and mindful moving forward.
Yeah. I know we've mentioned the dark web a few times, so I feel like, can you explain it for people listening? Like, I know what it is, but I feel like you would probably do a better job of detailing it.
Yeah, so the dark web is a subset of the internet. So you can think of it as there's like 3 layers of the internet. So we have your clear web, which is anyone can have access into. It's usually Google, right? Anything that you can find is on the clear web. Then you have the deep web, which is a level below that. And that is stuff that's information that you can access, but requires some level of authorization. So Telegram, Discord, Reddit, that's actually all considered deep web because not everyone can gain access into those sites. Or medical records, right? You need some sort of authorization to gain into it. Below that is the dark web. And just to be clear, the deep web makes up 90% of the internet. The clear web and dark web, no, I'm sorry, the deep web makes 80% of the internet. The clear web makes 10%, and the dark web makes the other 10%. So it's most people don't know that. Everyone thinks the clear web, like Google, is like 90%. The dark web is below that, and that requires special access. Usually it's Tor, so it's called the onion router, is the most common one. You have to download this special software. It's not that difficult to download, but once you have this downloaded, you have this app software, then you're able to anonymously go through different sites. It's hard because it's a little I always caution anyone trying to gain access in the dark web because it's, first of all, kind of clanky, it's very slow. And then there's a lot of links there that you don't want to click because they could be harmful, right? So, and there's a lot of information on there that you don't want to see because I think about 90% of the dark web today is it's like crime. I think majority of it is like child sex trafficking, whereas the purpose of the dark web back in the day when it was created was to be a platform for free speech, especially at countries that that didn't have free speech, right? And so it was a good place for journalists to be able to get information and to support people coming from more of these countries that had very stricter regimes on free speech so that we could share it, right? But since then, it's completely devolved and it's all majority criminal activity.
Was the Silk Road, was that part of that, or is that something separate? So, okay, so do you have
Mhm.
opinions on Ross Ulbricht and that whole situation?
So when the Silk Road happened, when was that? Like 5 years ago? Was that like 10 years ago or
The
so?
Silk, I think it was found, I can Google it, but I know he just got pardoned.
Hmm.
Silk Road Dark Web founder founding 2011 was when it was launched.
Yeah, so that was part of a when that site was taken down, I think that was a joint force between US and our allies, European allies. But basically it was like a site where you can purchase, you know, all types of illegal activity, right? So like if you're hiring, so not only was it revolved around like drugs, but also if you were trying to uh, kill someone, you can hire an assassin on it. Um, and the that was one of the biggest initiatives of the dark web, and it's the most common one used because it was the very first one. But that was taken once that was taken down, it kind of shook the cyber criminals a little bit within the dark web because they realized, okay, not everything is as anonymous as we like it to be. And the reason that is because people make mistakes, right? So someone might make a comment about something in a different forum, which then can be matched to using their same user ID if they go and purchase something else. And so we're able to grab all of these different pieces. This is where CTI comes involved, grabs all these pieces, build a profile for these individuals, and then we can track them. And then that's how we're able to take them down. So it wasn't, it is anonymous in the sense that you can't track people's, footprint, but you are able, based off of their, just human error alone, we were able to take it down.
You have um an opinion on the pardoning? Because I think some people will say like, oh well, he just made a site that was meant to be used for commerce outside of the kind of confines of the U.S. government in like a libertarian sort of fashion, and then other people will say like, well, he made this site so people could hire assassins and sell drugs and stuff, and so I think like, do you have an opinion on that one way or the other on the pardoning and the situation, or not really? Or if you would like to refrain from giving one, I that's also okay.
Um, I think I have a bit of a hot take on that.
Sure.
I it kind of goes along with the same most recently with Telegram, right? When the CEO of Telegram was arrested for because of all like the child sex trafficking material that was helping on Telegram, and
Hmm.
he kept saying like, I built Telegram as a place for free speech. So, I don't tell, even there could be crime on there. People can do whatever they want, but you can't, I won't give up information of who these people are. And I do understand that. Like I do understand, and this is where it gets a little tricky when it comes to free speech, because what he was doing with the Silk Road initiative, right, was to make it an e-commerce site. But we all knew it was like 90% of it more was all criminal activity. And who it was hurting was mostly children. And refused to take it down. And the same thing with Telegram, right? He refused to work with law enforcement on finding out who these guys were selling, basically selling child pornography. Everyone can admit that's a wrong, right?
Hmm.
Regardless of free speech. And yet he would not give up. He had the ability to give up their information to law enforcement for law enforcement to take action on it, but he said, nope, I created the site. It's, people can do whatever they want. I'm a third party. I just created the site. And I think that's really irresponsible. And I think that if crimes are happening like that and are hurting people like Silk Road, then yeah, consequences need to be made, because you can't just say I'm making this as an e-commerce site, but he knew it would be for all illegal activity. Absolutely. Why does everything have to be so anonymous? So that's just my little hot take on it, because I get into arguments a lot with people around this, especially the Telegram, because they're like, okay, well then where does the fine line of where freedom of speech stand? And I'm like, sure, but like there's children's lives at stake here, you
Yeah.
know? So,
Yeah. I definitely I see where you're coming from 100%, and I don't even disagree at all. I think like generally speaking on that line, I personally err on the side of like as much as much as possible. Um, like we, but then again, it's like you want people, you don't want to be nervous about government corruption. Like in Europe, people are being put in jail for like Facebook posts and things of that
mhm,
nature. And so there's like a political climate around where it's like if everyone trusted one another and no one was lying, and then they didn't cooperate, I would be like, okay, yeah, yeah, 100%. But then you get into this weird political situation where you've got the founder of Telegram in France, and people are using Telegram for not so great things. And then it's like, okay, are you arresting him to get at something else, like outside of the trafficking stuff? Because I think there were some, I don't recall exactly. There was other people using Telegram, I think in the United States, like political figures that people were trying to get after as well. And so it became this whole, I remember there was but then
mhm.
again, it's like you would want to cooperate because like you said, children's lives are at stake and you don't, I don't know, it gets very messy very quickly. Um,
I think I remember this example because I was working with a group that uh, worked with getting child sex predators off the internet.
Mm,
And there was one case where they um, found someone who had they had all the information they needed for this bad guy who was selling like copious amounts of child pornography. And it was a really, really sad story. And that information was brought to the CEO of Telegram. And they said, like, hey, we have all of this evidence. This man is the one who's, doing this, exploiting all these children. Can you give us like his identity? And the Telegram CEO at the time was like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Like, it's my policy. I can't do that. It's just the policy of Telegram. And in that case, it, I get it, free speech, right? Like, but at the same time, this guy could have been in prison and those children could have been set free and,
yeah.
you know, lives didn't have to be, hurt so much.
Yeah, I'm with you on that 100%. Are you familiar with Ryan Montgomery?
Mm-mm.
He's been on a bunch of podcasts and he kind of went from what is it called? Black Hat is
Yeah,
yeah, so he went from that to basically chasing these sorts of situations that you were mentioning. Um, and like he would go to the authorities with all this information because he would hack into the various whatever like and they'd be like, "Oh,
oh, I
well,
love that.
we can't do it or this or that." And so and what he ended up doing was like just sending like logs of their activity to like the cops or whatever and there was I think congressperson from oh, I don't know. I should not say these things without remembering them off the top of my head. I listened to them a while ago, people. But yeah, so like he's gone and done great work with that. And then also some of the stuff that he showed, he was on the Sean Ryan show and he was like, "Hey Sean, you want to see how quickly if I go into a chat room, how and say like I'm a 12-year-old girl or whatever, how quickly all these people will message me?" And he was like, the guy was like, "Sure." Pulls up 12 female like hundreds of messages within like 2 minutes. And it's like, that is bananas from
Mhm.
like old people. And it's like, yeah, the internet, I don't know, right? I get into this weird, where it's like, that is unfathomable to even listen to that story. Like, it makes your blood boil. And then also we have Amazon. And it's like the internet is the best and also the worst of like humanity at the
Yeah,
same time. It's very strange.
yeah,
What do you think?
yeah.
Like, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it goes over like how often should we be monitoring these sites, right? I think I love Ryan Montgomery. Well, from what you've told me about him, he's like my hero. I think it's hard. I'm glad he's working with law enforcement with this because there are a lot of cases where we have vigilantes who get so upset and horrified with what they're seeing on the dark web, so they try to do it themselves. And
Hmm.
at that point, it's not even working with law enforcement. It's kind of going against law enforcement. It's not helping law enforcement because they have a very specific way of how they need to handle this. And if it gets intruded, then they've completely lost the case. So just want to say I love Ryan Montgomery, and that sounds really awesome for the things that he's doing. But yeah, to your point, I think like it's so tricky, and it's because the lines are so hazy in terms of like freedom of speech, which I totally understand. But the criminal activity, on the dark web is so dark. Um, it makes you wonder, right? Like, where should the lines be drawn?
Yeah. Do you get jaded at all working in this field or seeing, like, not that that's what you're doing all the time, but seeing
Hmm.
some of the horrific stuff or like tracking down um like the next social engineering kind of scam or phishing attack or whatever that's coming, and just seeing like all the time people are trying new ways to just take advantage of people. Obviously the running joke would be like, oh yeah, I got $1 million from a Nigerian prince, and it's like, okay, well, don't click on that one. But like as the threats evolve, does it
Hmm.
like mentally, do you come home and you're like, oh, I hate my life? Like, well, like where are you at? Or do you like doing it? Do you like the kind of the activity of being able to say like, yes, I made sure that this person was, or I helped make sure that this company was safe today, or this person was safe today, or like where, like, what do you have good days and bad, or like
Yeah.
how do you handle that?
I think when it comes to like when I was working with that dark web threat intelligence firm, I definitely had to take a step back with the child sex trafficking. That was that was way too much for me. And it did kind of, I was like, oh my gosh, everyone is a creep. I was like thinking like, oh my gosh, everyone is a creep. Because they like some of the like stunts that law enforcement would do would like they would have an older woman, an FBI agent, older woman who looked very, very young. And then she would go undercover and start like a live stream. And there was hundreds of men that signed up to this live stream. And when law enforcement would catch all of these guys that signed up for the live stream, right? And a lot of the guys who signed up for the live stream ended up being in law enforcement as well. So like that, I was like, oh, this is so horrible. Like everyone is so perverted and disgusting. But then at the same time, there's a lot of it's like this the Ryan Montgomery example that you just brought in. There's a lot of incredible people that I get to work with that even the company that I work with right now is like all about trying to make the world a better place, right? Into combating with these people, but doing so with like it's sort of along the same lines of like how everyone's like very scared about AI like taking over and what's going to happen with the world with AI. But at the same time, we use AI, right? And it can be a very, very powerful tool for us in order to combat some of these things. So I think where I am now at Filigran, I am at a much better place because I see how incredible the technology is and how like the real value it provides to these companies in order to defend themselves and be more proactive to the cyber threats out there. So yeah, both good days and bad days.
Yeah, you hear that sometimes from like the stories of the people that were moderating content on Facebook or like before they put some of their regulations and
Oh
stuff in
yeah.
place, where it's like every like their entire day is just seeing the most horrific stuff and just clicking like report, take down, take down, take down. It's like you get that drilled into your brain for however long you're doing it. It's like eventually you're gonna end up with some form of, I don't know if it's PTSD or whatever the term would.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, I
Yeah.
mean, do you feel the repercussions from that at all, or like was it short-lived enough that you're kind of? Because I can imagine like it's like, did you know that that's what you were gonna end up doing before you did that, or was this like, oh, by the way, surprise, you're gonna see all this horrific stuff today?
Well, so I was very lucky in the sense that when I did the work on the dark web, everything was blurred for me. So if there was any, even like drugs and guns, all of that information was blurred. So I didn't have to actually see it. Um, I think now I just a bit more, I'm like a bit more cautious. I think sometimes when I see like couples walking down the street with their child and they're not holding their child's hand, I get a little anxious. I'm like, you should probably be holding your child's hand. Um, but from that, yeah, I think it's been okay.
Well, that's good. I'm very happy to hear that for sure. Um, you mentioned earlier, completely shifting topics. Um,
Mhm.
the Apple password protection thing. So I know people that will say, well, I don't even want to put my passwords in there because what if they get a data breach and then all my passwords there that I don't remember them anyways are now out on the thing. Is Apple or other companies that you would say are um, pretty good in terms of that sort of thing, or are like some worse than others? Are there ones that you recommend that? Well, I don't really know what I'm getting. Well, I guess what I'm getting at is like there are certain things that you can store on the internet, or password managers,
Mhm.
keys, things like that, or different sort of VPNs. Like you see, or people listening will probably have heard of ExpressVPN or NordVPN from
Mhm.
advertising on like whatever comedian's podcast that they listen to that day. Um, are there ones that are better than others in terms of like stuff that people use on a day to day that you're like, okay, yeah, that's pretty safe, or like other ones that are like, yeah, I don't know about that one.
It's kind of hard to say. I think I do remember, I think a couple of years ago, one of the big password protection companies did get leaked, right? It did get hacked and all the passwords were leaked. And that one was considered to be like a very good password protection. For me, I just use Apple because it's the most convenient. It's easier for me because everything I use is Apple, so it's just a little bit easier. But nothing is 100%, right? Nothing is bulletproof. It's completely guaranteed.
Hmm.
So as long as like you're using your password protection policy, you have MFA in place, then you should feel a little bit more confident about your security posture.
Yeah. I don't really know what else I was going to ask you. Actually, I take it back. There's one. Have you you mentioned like you follow Hacker News. Have you followed there's a guy with blue hair that calls into these like call centers, these scamming call centers in India. Have you heard of that guy whose name escapes me that I'm Googling right now? Um,
Mm-mm.
oh, I don't even know. Uh,
What does he call into the call centers for?
he basically like calls in and tells them that like he knows where they are. Oh, what is this? Scammer Payback is the guy's name.
Mhm.
Basically what he does is like he'll get a number to a call center and he'll call in and then backtrace their IP and then just scare the bejesus out of all of them. And the videos are very entertaining to watch
Love
sometimes.
that.
Do you deal with stuff like that as well? Just like the scams of like, oh, buy these gift cards and then send them here or whatever.
No, not really. That's not really where my expertise falls, but it's just definitely something that I keep an eye out for it because I know like my family members or my friends' families, they'll reach out to me about it, so I'll try to keep on top of it. But yeah, it's a little more outside of what I do.
Is there anything that I haven't asked you that I should have?
Mm, well, I think I would like to give a shout out to uh, something that I've been working on recently.
Go for it.
Um, so in the cyber threat intelligence space, right, it's mostly male dominated, and cyber threat intelligence is very important to have diverse perspectives within it, right? Because each piece of intel is like a piece of a puzzle. So the more pieces of intel that you have, you can build your puzzle. And so recently, I'm part of different cyber threat intel groups, and most of the time they're just dominated by men, which is great, and I think it would help not only from, getting women out there, but more so helping progress the field of CTI by having women's insights because CTI, you require an analytical mind, also technical, right? It's not all technical as someone might think when it comes to cybersecurity. And so women have a different way of thinking sometimes. And so I've created with one of my colleagues, Women in Cyber Threat Intelligence, Women in CCI. And the whole purpose behind that is to get more women involved and to feel more comfortable speaking up with the work that they've been doing. Because sometimes it's a little daunting if you're in this like Slack channel and it's all men and they're sharing all of their ideas around, some sort of incident. And maybe as a woman, you might feel a little less inclined to speak. And so the whole purpose of Women's CTI is to get more people and get more women particularly involved. And so, hopefully it becomes a little bit larger where we can get, like a mentorship program or do our own community meetups. But at this time now, we just have like a Slack channel and trying to get, we create different articles that we promote and share. Um, yeah.
Is there a place, like, where should people go to find that? Is there like a newsletter or like a way to subscribe or like where should people go to if they want to learn more or to find it or support it as well?
So we have right now we have a Slack channel and I can send you the Slack channel.
Hmm.
Um, but also feel free to just reach out to me directly on LinkedIn and I could send over the link.
Okay, perfect. I will put the links to those in the descriptions for those listening if people are interested. Um, hmm. There's so much stuff I want to ask you, but I feel like it's going to be very disjointed, and I know you have to leave soon. Do you have any last thoughts, last nickels, last I don't know, advice for people listening about this sort of stuff, or like ways to maybe learn more that isn't so daunting, or good places to go to get like the cybersecurity for dummies or
Mm.
change your password for dummies like articles or like where like what like encompassing for I don't know. All I said a lot, but I don't know. Go for it.
Um, yeah, if anyone, I like to, I think one of the big things that I do is I generally like to help students, those looking to get into the cyberspace. And so if anyone, even if you're not a student, has any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to see what I can do in terms of providing direction on where to go. I think what might help is maybe just if you're just starting from the basics, just setting up certain Google alerts, right? Of like maybe understanding some of the top cyber threats out there, as well as the tactics that are being used. So I think right now, social engineering is number one. And so what are trying to understand, I guess really is trying to understand what those tactics look like so that you can make sure you don't become a victim of it.
Yeah, good good advice for sure. Any last nickels before we get you out of here?
No, I think that's everything.
All right, sounds good. For those listening, if you're interested, links will be in in the description. As always, thank you for listening, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.
Thank you so much, Eric.
Thanks for tuning in to the World XP podcast. If you want to watch another episode like this one, click there. If you want to subscribe, click there.